He called himself Mr. Gray. I'd never heard the name before my son. Alex whispered it from his little bed, sweat on his brow, eyes flickering with something older than childhood. It began innocently, an extra chair at dinner, Alex setting out a plate of peas for someone who never ate. My wife and I laughed, humored him. 3-year-olds invent all sorts of friends. But Mr. Gray knew things. Late one evening, I tucked Alex in. The hallway light cast long shadows. "Dad," he said, voice trembling, "Mr. Gray says don't drive tomorrow." I smiled. "Really? Why?" "He says there'll be a crash, a big one." I kissed his forehead and shuffled downstairs, the warning evaporating in the warmth of the kitchen. Next morning, I struck a nail in my tire on the way out, slower by chance, but not luck. As I waited roadside, a highway crawler came on my radio. 6 dead in a pileup, my usual route. My coffee cooled. I stared at the black asphalt, wondering how a child could channel that. After that, Alex's little remarks bloomed like rot in the dark. "Mr. Gray says the Browns are leaving," he told me after dinner. The Browns vanished that night's old sign sprouting overnight, house empty. "Mr. Gray says Whiskers is sick," he murmured the next morning. Our cat vanished 2 days later, fur left behind in the litter box. No child knows such futures, and yet he did. Alex shrank. Where he once chased butterflies, he now huddled by walls, whispering behind closed doors. One night, I found him sleepwalking, a pale shadow under the hallway bulb, staring at the wall as if it held secrets. "What are you doing?" I asked softly. "He says don't go in the basement," Alex murmured, yawn tears trickling down his cheeks. "He doesn't like what's down there. Says it smells wrong." I hadn't mentioned the basement in weeks. I chalked it up to nightmares, tucked him back into bed. But the next night he screamed again, the same warning eyes burning with fear. I stood before the basement door painted gray, handle cold as grief. My father died 2 years ago and left me that room. Dusty furniture, old trunks, his things. I'd never touched them until now. The steps groaned beneath me as I descended into musty gloom. The air pressed against my lungs, heavy with mildew and something fouler like blood turned rotten. At the far corner, behind a coil of copper pipes, the concrete floor looked wrong. A circle of discoloration, faintly cracked, as if someone burned a sigil and then filled the scorch with fresh cement. I knelt, finger brushing the surface. Warmth bloomed under my skin. A low hum thrummed through the walls like a breath in the dark. That night I dreamed of fire. A room steeped in red, candles dripping wax onto stone. My father stood at the center, chanting words that slipped through my mind like smoke. Across from him, a small figure writhed, a child whose mouth opened in a silent scream. I woke choking, pillow damp with sweat. The basement's warning echoed in my ears. The next morning, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, voice brittle. "Did he ever?" She cut me off. "Your father was a troubled man. There were things I didn't ask about." Her voice cracked. "Please don't." I hung up, more questions than answers, the weight of my father's secrets pressing down. That night, Alex crept into our room. He crawled beneath the covers, his small frame shaking. "Mr. Gray tried to keep it away," he whispered, "but it's awake now." Then came the banging. 3 dull thuds, like a fist pounding from below, followed by scratching rat claws or something worse, then a groan so low it rattled my bones. I grabbed my bat and raced downstairs. The basement door trembled under each impact. The door burst inward at my touch. Cold air slammed into me, carrying the stench of decay. I flicked the light switch. The bulb held, revealing the circle. That cracked floor split like skin. A fissure spider webbed outward, then yawned open. From the darkness, something slid a slick black shape, too fluid to be flesh, too solid to be shadow. It slipped into the corner where pipes converged and vanished. I stood paralyzed, breath roaring. I didn't gather our things. I didn't stop to pack. I grabbed Alex, scooped him into my arms, and fled with my wife, thoughtless, frantic. Behind us, the basement door slammed shut, as if satisfied. We moved towns that night. Furniture left as tombstones. Alex doesn't speak of Mr. Gray now. Some nights, I hear him whispering in the dark, but when I ask, he says it's the silent one who watches over him. I try to believe we're safe new house, fresh start, but sometimes I glimpse long shadows in empty corners, unmoved by wind or light. And last week, Alex turned those pale eyes on me and asked, "Dad, what did you do to make Mr. Gray so angry?" I have no answer, only a knot of dread in my chest because I'm afraid I'm about to find out.
There's a video on the internet that no one talks about anymore. It's not because it was banned. It's because everyone who watched it went missing. It's called Room 103, the static tape, and I wish I never hit play. It started last October, just before Halloween. I was working late at the university archives, digitizing old VHS tapes for a research project. Most of them were boring lectures or forgotten student films from the 90s, until I found one without a label. Just a sticky note. Do not view. Destroy. Of course, I was curious, so I popped it in. The screen flickered with static. For a moment, I thought it was broken. Then, a dimly lit room appeared. A motel room, by the looks of it. Room 1013. There was no sound, just the low hum of static in the background. A girl stood in the corner, facing the wall. Her long black hair covered her face. She didn't move. I fast-forwarded. She was still there. I went hours ahead. She hadn't moved an inch. I almost stopped the tape, but then she slowly turned her head toward the camera. Her face wasn't fully visible, just pale skin, wide eyes, and the edges of a cracked smile. The power in the archive flickered. Then everything shut off. For a few seconds, I sat there in pitch black, the only light coming from the TV. And the girl was no longer in the frame. I leaned forward. Maybe the tape had ended. Then I heard it. A knock. 3 soft knocks. From the archive door behind me, I turned slowly. No one was there. But when I looked back at the TV, there was a new message, typed out in white text over static. You watched. Now she watches. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every screen in my apartment, the TV, my laptop, even my phone, glitched randomly, always showing brief flashes of room 103. Sometimes I'd see a reflection in the mirror behind me, for just a split second. I tried to show the tape to my friend Josh the next day, but when we played it, there was nothing, just black, as if it had never been recorded. He thought I was messing with him. Until the next night, he texted me one word. Knocking. Then he disappeared. The police never found him. I started researching. The motel was real, an abandoned roadside place outside of town. Shut down in 1996 after a girl was found dead in room 103. Facing the wall, unmoving, TV, static blaring. The legend says she was obsessed with being seen. That she recorded herself waiting 4 years. Anyone who watches her footage becomes her next audience, and she doesn't like to be ignored. If you're hearing this story now, maybe you think it's fake. Maybe you're even looking for the video, but I have to warn you. She doesn't need VHS tapes anymore. Just your screen. Just your attention. So if you see static, if your screen flickers and you catch a glimpse of room 103, don't look, don't listen. And whatever you do, don't answer the knock.
I've always loved hiking alone, the way the forest offers its silence like a sacred cathedral. Yesterday, I set out into the Silverwood Peaks, a remote stretch of ancient pines and mossy trails. At first, everything was perfect: crisp air scented with pine needles, the soft chatter of birds, and the steady rhythm of my boots on the leaf strewn path. 5 miles in, I heard a heavy crack behind me. I paused, breath caught in my throat, but saw nothing through the thick trunks. I convinced myself it was just a deer and pressed on. Minutes later, the crack came again, closer, followed by the unmistakable sound of something large pushing through underbrush. My heart pounded as I turned and saw a massive black bear sniffing the very ground I'd just walked. It wasn't curious. It was hunting me. I forced myself to move steadily, planning to circle it and slip back to the main trail a mile east. Every rustle behind me sent adrenaline crashing through my veins. The forest transformed into a maze of looming shadows and tangled branches. When the bear shifted into a slow run, I panicked and broke into a desperate sprint downhill, branches tearing at my arms while my lungs burned. Behind me, the bear charged like an unstoppable force of nature. Then I heard it, a clear, lilting whistle, three simple notes drifting through the chaos. Hope flared inside me. A ranger, maybe another hiker? I veered toward the sound, scrambling over fallen logs, until I burst into a silent clearing and froze. A gaunt figure stood before me, impossibly tall and thin, dressed in ragged clothes and wearing a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his hollow face. A leather satchel hung from his shoulder, and a pale human hand tumbled to the moss at his feet. Fear surged as I realized the whistle hadn't been a call for help. It was his hunting song. Behind me, the bear roared and reared on its hind legs, then froze in terror at the sight of this nightmarish stranger. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I dove into a bramble thicket, tearing at my skin, and hid until the forest fell still. When I emerged, I ran without thought, guided only by that whistle close and insistent, until I burst onto the main trail and saw my car, its windshield gleaming like salvation. I threw myself inside, slammed the door, and drove away in a blur of fear. Now I sit in a crumbling roadside motel, haunted by what I saw. If you ever wander deep in these woods and hear a whistle, don't follow it. It won't lead you to safety, it will lead you to your doom.